Life has never been easier, but for some reason, it's never been harder to not kill ourselves. We, I think in 2019, which is a little bit in the past, but I think the idea still holds true. It was the highest suicide rate globally ever, and well, actually, I think in the Great Depression there was a higher suicide rate, but that may have just been for the United States. I think globally though, it was, within the last 6 years. And there isn't a great discrepancy between the numbers in 2019 and the numbers today. And I, I don't I don't understand why this isn't eye-opening to society. You know, we, for all I can see, are running blindfolded as fast as we can, and nobody nobody's thinking about potentially stopping and taking the blindfold off. Morality is lower than ever. People are more depressed than ever. People are more obese than ever. And we're just running blindfolded down, the hedonic treadmill, just trying to get more and more progress, just trying to be more and more productive in a metric that doesn't even matter. I think we focus too much on lifespan and not quality of life. I would rather live 50 amazing, fruitful years than 100 years depressed, miserable, and yeah, just miserable. And it just seems like nobody, it's just the society is just going downhill. And it's so hard for an individual to just poke their head out of it, because then you just become alone. I've got rid of all my social media a while ago, and I've recently been re-downloading it here and there to, talk to people and see what's going on, and it just makes me depressed and I hate it. And I'm going to stop because it actually sucks. But it also sucks being, 23 years old and, not being able to go do the things I really want to do with people, because nobody likes doing that stuff anymore. Nobody likes going for long hikes. Nobody likes watching the sunsets, watching the sunrises, watching, just being in nature, reading, writing, learning. Nobody likes doing these things. Everyone just wants to go party, give into hedonistic pleasures, waste their time, give into trivial entertainment. And it sucks because you either choose to not be part of it, and, you don't need to be lonely while you're alone, but after a while, you do wish you had some people around. Or you give into it and then you are more depressed, and you're less productive, and you're doing less things that matter and more things that don't matter. Your morality is going down. It's it's horrible. It's a horrible day and age that we live in. And I think I can't remember what philosopher said it, but I think it was either Schopenhauer or Kierkegaard. I want to say it was Kierkegaard, but he said, everyone around, like he's like, he saw in like 1850 how everything around him was becoming easier. How everything was becoming more pleasurable, how everything was being more convenient. And he said, it's my job to make things uncomfortable. It's my job to make things less convenient, because all around me, all everyone is doing is making things easier. Someone's got to step up and make things harder. And um, I mean, was he not right? I don't know what other way to measure quality of life than, suicide rates. And if we're at a higher suicide rate than ever, I mean, wh- something's going wrong. And it's not pleasure. We have more pleasure than ever. It's easier to obtain than ever. It's less morally reprehensible than ever. It's less looked down on society than ever. I mean, even the conversation of abortion. I mean, I think abortion is wrong, and I think it is, but I think it's a hard topic for, someone who gets raped. Someone who gets raped, and it's very hard because if they do bear the child, then half that child is themselves, something they love, and then half of it is a monster to them, something that they hate, the thing they probably hate most. And I don't think that's easy. I don't think it's hard. It's hard, but and I think that's the only hard question about abortion is when people are raped. Every other question is easy. You knew the consequences, you wanted to give in to pleasure, and with someone that you weren't ready to have a kid with, you weren't ready to settle down with, and this thing happened. In life, we have to deal with the consequences of our actions. And all abortion is trying to make it so we don't have to deal with the consequences of our actions. And as I said, the rape question is a hard one. I will give you that. But I see no other reason than virtue signaling for why the other scenario is so hard to talk about. One side believes it's murder, and the other side believes it isn't murder. And I believe that's because, I mean, I don't like group categorizing a mass group of people, but it seems like in this day and age, all girls try to do is virtue signal. And how can you virtue signal when you admit that something is murder that you are okay with? You can't. So you just say that it isn't murder. You just say that it's my body, my choice, and you just say that what I do doesn't affect you. But it just comes from a hedonistic society where hookup culture is okay, where people just want to do these things constantly and without any repercussions. It's disgusting and it's horrible for society. And instead of trying to get the root issue, hookup culture, you know, having, you know, having sex with a enormous number of people and just thinking it's okay, we don't combat that. We combat one of the branches, potentially having a kid when you don't want one, and we just chop that branch off instead of chopping at the roots. It makes no sense. And I'm not here to, as I said, I mean, I don't know the easy answer to the rape question. It's not an easy answer. It's hard. I feel bad for any girl who has to deal with that, who gets raped and then has to bear the child, and then half of it is their world, and the other half is what destroyed their world. And it's, I'm sure, very traumatic. And there's no easy question. There's no easy answer to it. But that doesn't mean that, I don't know the exact percentages. So forgive me for throwing out a number off the top of my head, but I feel like it's probably north of 90% of abortions, probably like 99%, honestly, are not rapes. Only probably, 1 to 10% are rapes. And I could be wrong. If you're really triggered about that, go look it up for me. Um, but that's my guess. And you're telling me that this little this little percentage of the equation is the reason for having the whole problem. It's the little percentage of a thing that happens. So the answer for that is the answer to the whole problem. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And the only reason people don't want to call it murder is because it ruins virtue signaling, because you have to potentially deal with the consequence to your actions. And I think that's not the point of this video. That's just a little stem of just the day and the age that we live in, where suicide rates are higher than ever, and pleasure is easier than ever. Morality is lower than ever. Standards are lower than ever. It's it's insane to me. Nobody wants to do the hard things anymore. On the weekends, an ideal weekend to, probably more than half of men in their, in their midlife is getting drunk and watching football or watching sports ball and getting drunk and forgetting their life, getting away from everything, and then going back to their, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, to, you know, do it all again next weekend. And it's disgusting, and it's gross, and it's a waste of a life. And even these people, I don't think, enjoy it. They just don't know what else to do. They just, they're just lost. And society is not helping. Society is not, it's very sad, but it doesn't seem to me that society cares for the well-being of people. I remember when I first, I was overweight when I was younger. I remember when I first figured out that, a calorie deficit was all you needed to lose weight. And I felt like that information was being withheld from me. I tried for a long time and nobody told me that until I saw a YouTube video from Greg Doucette. And I did it. I lost weight. I got very healthy and I was very happy, extremely happy. And it was amazing. And I wanted to tell everyone about it because of how much better it made my life. And then soon after, COVID happened. And I remember I remember I was pretty naive back then. I was pretty young, like 17. So I remember seeing the correlation with obesity and death rates with COVID, and I was like, "Oh, this is, not great," but I was like, "This is good for the obesity problem because the FDA will start pushing, eating healthy. They'll start telling people about calorie deficits. They'll start telling people about high protein diets. They'll start telling people they shouldn't be drinking alcohol. They're like, they'll start saying all these things and it'll be great. So many people will lose weight. Deaths will go down from obesity and from COVID-19 because, it makes you more susceptible to death when you are obese, when you had COVID." And I was like, this is great. And it never happened. It never, no one ever tries to, no one ever tries to stop the obesity problem, even though 3 million people would die a year due to obesity. Nobody tries to stop that. Nobody cares. But they care about other things. They care about if you're wearing a mask or not in public. And it's just, everything is about money. They wanted more people to get vaccines for COVID than to start being healthy. And I'm not claiming that the COVID vaccine was bad. I don't know. There was, I don't know. But I do know that obesity is bad. And I do know that no one's doing anything to try to stop it. The only industry trying to stop obesity is the fad diet industry. And it's just a moneymaker. Because all a fad diet does, yes, you lose weight because you start watching what you eat. What a surprise. But nobody just wants to lose weight. People want to keep the weight off. And that's all fad diets do. They help you lose weight, and then you go back to your old way. So then you regain weight again, and then you have to go back to another fad diet. The fad diet industry is just making it so people are in an endless loop of fad diets, in a yo-yo diet, gaining and losing, gaining and losing. It's ridiculous. It's truly ridiculous. And nobody cares. Society does not care about your well-being. And I think that's a realization I had, and it helped me become very virtuous, very moral, very better, much better person. And it's a it's an idea I lost because we so often forget things, but I remembered it. And I'm now looking around, I remember I'm giving in to things that society wants me to give into. I'm giving into the things that, you know, to society wants me to give into. I mean, to my understanding, to what I see, I think the government, the people in power over this world, want us to be fat, lazy, and stupid so that we can't see the things right under our noses. And even if we do see them, we don't want to do anything about it. We just want to go forget about it and watch TV, forget about it and go smoke weed, forget about it and go party, forget about it and go have, you know, premarital sex and then get an abortion. And to me, that's all it seems like the people in power want us to do. They don't want us to be aware enough to potentially call out stuff when it happens. They want us to be dumb and lazy so that we won't. And when you realize that, it makes sense why when you go to the grocery store, there is only a small portion of real food and everything else is fake food. It makes sense when you go on social media and it's all hedonistic pleasure pursuing things. It's all girls half naked. It's all everything. It makes sense when you turn the TV on and it's just entertainment after entertainment. It makes sense. It makes so much sense. It makes sense when you realize that the government is just taking money from us. Inflation is the biggest sham of all time. Your money, you just lose money. I don't think people can truly grasp inflation because we got away from the gold standard and started printing our own money out of thin air, and then we just print more and more, which causes inflation, which just makes it so the money that you've earned becomes less valuable. The government doesn't take money from your bank account. They don't they don't drop the dollar, they don't drop the number, but they make it less valuable. But people are too it's just the way it is nowadays, I guess, but it's insane. It's insane that that's the way that it is. Inflation was so much less back in the day. You know, and then you look at the debt that the government's in. We weren't in like any debt until like the 1900s. Before that, we were fine. And then we got away from the gold standard. We started printing our own money and we destroyed ourselves. And that's exactly what happened to Germany. Germany, it cost like 2 million marks for a piece of bread because they started printing their own money after World War One because of the Treaty of Versailles, which absolutely fucked them. And they just had to make fake money, and they had to keep making fake and fake, fake, fake money and pay back for the things that they did, and it destroyed their economy. It's it's ridiculous, and it's what's happening to us. The same thing will happen here. The same thing will happen where money is. I mean, it's going up steadily. I mean, you can see back in the day. I mean, it's like a penny or like 5 cents for a soda out of a machine. It's like $2 now. What is that? I mean, a like a 100%, a 100x in 100 years, maybe less than 100 years. What do you think it's gonna look like in 100 years? $200 for a soda out of a machine? What do you think it's gonna look like after that? $20,000 for a soda out of a machine? That's where we're going, and it's not sustainable. And nobody cares. Society doesn't care. They just want to make you fat, dumb, and lazy so you don't understand it. You can't see the truth, and they don't care about your well-being. If they did, suicide rates would be getting talked about. And yeah, it's like, there's high suicide rates in men, and it's like, oh yeah, there's places you can go to talk about your problems. Why? Who gives a fuck about talking about your problems? Let's fix our problems. Let's fix society. Let's fix the things that are causing these problems. But we don't. All the human race has been so good at slicing at branches for so long instead of getting to the root of problems. The root is the hardest thing to destroy. It's so much easier to just chop off branches and act like you're doing work and close your eyes when they start growing back. But we need to get at the root of things. We need to cut the roots down. And I mean, in this day and age, suicide rates in teenagers are higher than they started skyrocketing when an interesting thing started happening. Something called social media. Social media is a cancer. And you're watching this on a social media platform, but I'm more talking about the short form, short form content, or the, posting about your personal life, like the weird, like, why post about your personal life to people who don't care? It's just trying to show off, and then by you trying to show off the best parts of your life because you kind of feel like shit about yourself, someone envies the best part of your life while you feel like shit about yourself, and then they feel like shit about themselves because they see that you're so happy when you're not. And it's just an endless loop. And I think long form content has been the only good part of social media. And that's why, excuse me, all I try to do is post on YouTube because it's the only place that promotes long form content. I mean, there's other places, but it's a place that promotes long form content. And I don't want to be another person contributing to this world that's destroying people, that's destroying morality, that's making people sad and depressed. I just don't want to be a part of it. And that's why I post the type of videos I do, because I believe it's a cure for the cancer that is coming. It is here. And I I got away from these pitfalls for a long time. And I recently started falling back into some pitfalls because of, free time, because of it's been so long, maybe it's not that bad, because of being around certain people again, being in a certain environment again. And I can truly see and I can truly tell you, this stuff is horrible. This stuff is what is making suicide rates skyrocket. This stuff is what is making people feel hopeless and like life has no meaning. This is the stuff that's getting people away from God and also bringing people to God, because it's the only thing that has meaning, the only thing that has moral structure. I mean, the only people in this day and age who aren't, complete whores, who aren't hedonistic, pleasure seeking people, are religious people, or people who aren't religious but deeply believe in God and are very spiritual people. Everyone else is just a pleasure seeking hedonist. And even then, a lot of people who are religious still are. But I mean, if you're going to find if you want to find someone who hasn't had, like 10 bodies in before they're 20 years old, or, before they're like 24, I mean, they probably have to be somewhat of a Christian. And it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's sad. It's horrible. And society doesn't care. There's no movement to try to ban porn. There's no movement to try to get people off their phones. There's no movement to try to push how bad entertainment can be for you and how short form content's destroying your focus and your attention. That's all you have in life. There's none of that. All this getting pushed is more junk food down your throat, more sports ball, more propaganda to make you hate the other side, to make you want to so passionately raise arms for something you don't even understand, against people that you don't even understand, against beliefs that you don't even understand. It's truly disheartening, and it truly makes one lose hope. But you can't lose hope. You must keep your hope. Hope is all we have. But I think that the main point of this video, was, the suicide thing, but also the fact that society does not want to see you win. They want to see you lose. They want you to live paycheck to paycheck. They want you to spend every last dime on consumer goods. They want you to spend all of your time and attention on their apps, on their things. They want you to be a hedonistic, pursuing, mindless robot who listens to everything, who doesn't question authority, who takes everything without looking into it deeply, who doesn't have the wisdom to know what to do, when to do it, how to do it, who doesn't stand up to evil when they see it. Our society is slowly killing us, slowly destroying us. And the more you become like the herd, the more you give in to what society wants you to become like. And as I said, it's hard. It's hard sometimes to be alone, but realize you're never alone. You're never alone when you're alone. If you're alone when you're alone, you're in bad company. And that's something you should work on, not something you should run away from. The answers you are seeking are in the silence that you are avoiding. And I know no better way to become who you really are than to give in to solitude and to see how these things that you're doing are not who you are, how these things you regret doing, you must stop, how these people you're spending time with, you must distance yourself from, how you have to listen to the still small voice. You have to just go and do that which you know you must do. And you can only do these things when you stop becoming lazy because society wants you to be lazy. It's hard to get up and make changes and do the hard work when you're addicted to entertainment, when you're addicted to drugs, when you're addicted to porn, when you're addicted to all of these horrible things. It's hard to get up and make a change. It's hard to spend all your free time doing something worthwhile because it's not easy. Because it's not easy. But that's how you know it's worth doing. And I urge you to just realize that society does not want you to win. Society wants you to be miserable. And that sucks. That's a hard truth. I try to be optimist, but I mean, suicide rates being higher than ever, something is going wrong. And the only thing we're trying to do to change suicide rates is talk. Are you kidding me? Just talk about our problems. That's how we stop wanting to kill ourselves. Ridiculous.